Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with this week's episode of the Rogue Roundup, a series in which I give my picks on Legacy, Standard, Commander, Pauper, and even Modern for cards that I think are going to go up. Starting off this week, we are going to look at a Legacy card, Ancient Tomb from Ultimate Masters. Now, normally I would say you have a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 months before Ultimate Masters starts to go up in value for the majority of the cards contained within, but I think that Ancient Tomb is going to start going up quicker than the rest of the cards. If you check Ultimate Masters, most of the cards since December have been flatlined out, not a lot of movement either down or up. I was going to give this a little more time to go down, but I don't think that this is going to happen to Ancient Tomb. So if you can get in on Ancient Tomb anywhere under the $20 mark, I think that's a pretty good investment, or it's a great place to park money. This card sees a ton of play in both Legacy and Commander, and those are the type of cards that I like to invest in mostly, is the ones that double dip. It currently sees play in a lot of the fast mana decks like Mono Red Prison in Legacy, and in Commander it's had more eyes on it than normal when this became more of a budget card or even started to see more play just due to people opening up in Ultimate Masters. I think it's going to be more of a staple in Commander than it was before the printing in Ultimate Masters. So I think in a good 6 months to a year, this will be $25, maybe even $30, and then once it hits that price, and we've had about a year since Ultimate Masters has been released, this card could go nuts. I don't see a reprint anytime soon, within at least maybe 2-3 years, and this, again, could be a very expensive card if it does not get reprinted in that time period. Moving on, let's take a look at Pauper. For this week, I'm going to choose Martyr of Ashes. Now, Pauper is still pretty stagnant. We have seen a little more movement than we've seen in the past few weeks, mainly due to the MCQ that we saw at Los Angeles. The burn deck was not running the card that I picked, Martyr of Ashes. However, I think it should have been running Martyr of Ashes like most of the burn sideboards do put in their sideboard. Typically, this is a 3 of or a 4 of. Martyr of Ashes is the only way that burn can realistically get rid of the Gurmag Anglers or even the Augur of Bolas's or any of the decks that go wide and have a multitude of different creature toughnesses. This one you could use to even wipe away creatures with toughness 2 and keep your Thermal Alchemist alive. So the flexibility of Martyr of Ashes is what really makes this the key sideboard card in the burn decks. So currently it's about 40 cents. You can get in as low as 25 cents from particular vendors like Cool Stuff. I've been slowly buying out the internet of copies under 25 cents, so you can blame me for the majority of the inventory swinging up in that price. However, I think this is a good spec regardless of my selfish interest because I own a ton of these. This has solidified itself in Pauper Burn, which is a tier 1 deck at this moment. This is one of the last cards from the Cold Snap era where there's low supply and has heavy demand in Pauper. So even if Pauper doesn't have like a 2.0 boom, I think we're going to see a normal trajectory like we saw from Oath the Gatewatch to Rivals of Ixalan, and that was a steady growth for the entire format as a whole. So I'm still investing in Pauper for those reasons. Moving on to Standard. Now, Standard isn't a format that I like to invest in the spring and summer. I don't think there's a lot of equity to be gained in, of course, rotating cards. And then the post-rotation, of course, is going to be up in the air with a bunch of new sets coming out. We don't know what decks are going to be strong, what decks are not going to be strong. This card, though, I think is a pretty good pickup because it's from Ravnica Allegiance. We're nearing the end of the draft life of Ravnica Allegiance, and most of the cards that have seen play have already started to go up in value, especially the foils. So this one I'm going to pick a foil called Cry of the Carnarium. This sees a decent amount of play. Many decks run 2 of in the sideboard. I've seen these decks be played in the main, and I've also seen modern decks run the card. This card is just a very powerful card, being able to give all creatures -2, -2, and then exile all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So I think that's going to be a key mechanic going forward. We have a lot of cards right now like Phoenixes and Skeletons that are coming back from the graveyard, and there could be more that are printed in the upcoming sets that Cry of the Carnarium is the Silver Bullet for. So it's strictly better than most of these cards that have been printed in the last few years, strictly better than the Golden Demise. And I think that this card has only one way to go, which is up. It is pretty cheap with the foils being around $1.50 at the moment and non-foils being around 25 cents. We've seen these uncommons actually be able to go up as high as $10 for the foil versions, and $2 for the normal version. So Cry of Carnarium will probably follow that trajectory. And if you're looking to get in on a cheap spec from Ravnica Allegiance, I think this is the one to buy into. Next up, we have Modern. Now, this is one that I've picked before on Rogue Roundup. I don't think I've done this before as pick one we've picked before, but I still think this is an amazing buy, and I think that you are running out of time if you're going to be investing in this card. This is Eidolon of the Great Revel from Masters 25. This card sees a ton of play in Modern Burn, and we have Modern Horizons coming out, which indefinitely will shake up the Modern format. We don't know what's going to be viable, what's not going to be viable, but Burn is really like the old faithful of Modern. It's always been there since the beginning. It hasn't gone anywhere as far as at least being a tier 2 deck, and it is really the deck that keeps all the other decks in check, is Burn. So Burn does use Eidolon of the Great Revel. I don't think I've ever really seen any instances of Burn not running this card. It's extremely powerful in a cantrip based format, and the price of this I think is very, very low. We've already started to see other Masters 25 rares go up in value, and this one's lagging behind for some reason. Currently the price is about $5.50. The buy list spread is pretty substantial right now. It's about $3.50 for the highest buy list, and I think that that is going to evaporate because we do have vendors already putting this card up as high as $7 to $8. If you can get in anywhere below the $4 mark, I think that's a steal of a deal. And this card, again, after Modern Horizons, is pretty much going to be a staple in the format regardless of what gets printed out of that set. That leaves us this week with Commander. For Commander, I have already done a video discussing about this card. This is Disallow. Now, Disallow was recently rotated. Typically, I like to give cards that recently rotated a little more time before I invest in them, with Commander being the exception. Now, if you look at Disallow, it has 15,000 decks that this is registered in for Commander. This is huge. In fact, this puts it in the top 30 for all blue cards, and it is by far the youngest card in that top 30. So I think that Disallow, if you compare it to many other cards in that time period, the price does not add up. It only is about a $3 card. You can get in around the $2.50 mark. It's kind of hard to get in on that mark because I bought most of those cards out, but I think if you get in under the $2.75 mark, it's going to be a quick double up within a year. If you look back at some of these other Commander cards, even if they are rares out of heavily open sets, it takes about only a few months after rotation before they start to see movement, and then a year or 2 years down the road, they can double up. Think like Zendikar Resurgence here, and Disallow is seeing more play than that card is at this moment. So I like Disallow. It also sees play in Modern from time to time, and if there is a Modern 2.0 format, I think this is going to be one of the better counter spells for that format. So picking up at Disallow at the $2.75, I think will be the last time that this card is at that price. If it does somehow get a reprint in Standard, I don't even think it will be able to hold that price tag. I think there'll be enough demand like there was last time from Standard to actually increase the price of the card. So I think it's very, very safe for those reasons. I hope you enjoyed this list of cards from this week's episode of the Rogue Roundup. Be sure to check back next week. Or if you're a fan of this type of financial content, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. What are your 5 cards you're going to be investing in? Be sure to check out my other channel over at roguedeckbuilder.com for our weekly Market Monday episode. Thanks for watching.